Jesse Jackson rejects a compromise over the expulsion of 7 students in Illinois. A watershed in managed healthcare, and HMO lets doctors decide. And local programming may soon be coming to a satellite dish near you. This is the CBS Morning News for Tuesday, November 9th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Julie Chen. The Reverend Jesse Jackson plans to lead a march in Decatur, Illinois today to demand that 7 black high school students expelled for fighting be allowed to return to class. School officials agreed late Monday to reduce their original 2-year expulsions and allow the students to attend alternate schools. After a year, they could return to their regular schools, but Jackson, who met with school officials and the Illinois governor, said the punishment was still too severe for a simple fist fight.
60 days is enough. Let children go back to school with probation.
Is 2 years too long? A lot of people think it is. I happen to think that maybe 2 years was a little severe.
The school board president called the fight a, quote, mob action. Decatur's 3 high schools were closed yesterday, but may reopen today. For searchers at the site of the Egypt Air 990 crash, the jet's flight recorders are still out of reach. The Navy's recovery ship USS Grapple returns to the scene this morning with better weather expected to help recovery efforts. Here's Bob Orr.
A privately owned ship, the Carolyn Schwest, is also on the scene and has already put its submersible robot in the water. That remote-operated drone, similar to this one, most recently has been used for underwater oil pipeline work in the Gulf of Mexico. But the retrieval of the boxes will be difficult. For the first time, investigators now have detailed the underwater crash site. Cameras on Grapple's deep drone have revealed at least 2 large piles of wreckage, and investigators fear the boxes may be encased in a jumble of debris and silt.
I can only say that it's very fragmented, and part of the difficulty, I think, in retrieving the recorders has been the fact that most of the parts we're working with are very small.
The flight recorders are critical because the small bits of wreckage recovered so far have provided few clues. The NTSB has found no obvious sign of an airplane failure, and the FBI to this point has come up dry as well.
We have absolutely no indication of any criminal activity as it pertains to Flight 990.
Investigators who badly need a break in the case may get one with the weather. The next 2 days, we're told, are expected to be extremely good for recovery operations. That might be enough time to pick up the boxes, and with them possibly the first real clues as to what went wrong. Bob Orr, CBS News, Washington.
One of the nation's biggest insurance providers is rolling back the clock on managed care, reducing the power that HMOs have to oversee patient treatment. Many doctors and their patients are cheering the decision. Jim Axelrod reports.
It's long been complaint number 1 for the 80 million people enrolled in HMOs, that an insurance company employee could overrule a physician. Now United Health Group, the nation's 2nd largest health insurer, is giving doctors the final say on treatment.
It's an evolutionary leap for United Healthcare, but we definitely believe it's a revolution for the industry.
This change is about economics as much as medicine. It cost United Health $100 million a year to run a review system which turned down only a fraction of requests.
We know that 99.1% of all requests for authorizations are approved, which really demonstrates that we're paying over $100 million in salaries and infrastructure costs to say yes.
I think it's an idea whose time has come.
Surrounded by his all-consuming paperwork, Dr. Bree Benjamin is applauding United Health. An internist for 45 years, he says his staff spends 30% of its time seeking approval from HMOs for patient treatment.
I also am a patient, too, and I have the same trouble with my doctor, whom I like, who wants to treat me nicely, but he's under the same gun.
In the last few years, only IRS has rivaled HMO as America's most hated 3-letter abbreviation. While consumer complaints may have fueled HMO reform efforts on Capitol Hill, United Health's new policy may end up changing the healthcare business more than any new law.
I think if they're able to show that they can do this and average premiums just don't rise next year, I think the industry is going to have to follow this.
The popularity of HMOs was built on promises of reduced costs through rigid reviews. One insurer has decided they can't have both, and an industry may be changed for good. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, New York.
President Clinton is using the internet to meet the people. More than 30,000 computer users logged on for a so-called virtual town meeting with the president last night. He answered questions from cyberspace for nearly 2 hours, interrupted by a few technical problems. Coming up on the CBS Morning News, Wall Street says ho-hum to Microsoft's antitrust suit problems. Plus, a new deal for satellite TV viewers, local channels on your home dish. But first, Dan Rather with a look ahead to tonight's CBS Evening News.
Tonight, scientists are racing to uncover the secrets of human life, and some are even willing to share them with you for a price. We'll report to you what that could mean for your future health.
Relief may be on the way for the millions of Americans who are satellite TV customers but cannot get local programming. Congress is taking up a measure today that would change all that. Diana Olick has our report.
The football games are on that one. That's Sundays and Monday nights. That one is the rest of the week.
Jeannie Kenny has more than 100 channels at her fingertips.
I can get stations in Iran, I can get stations in Mexico, in Canada, but I can't get any local stations.
In Louisa, Virginia, she's simply too remote for a regular antenna to work, and the law forbids satellite companies from beaming down her local stations. But they can buy local programming from faraway stations.
I can tell you who the commentators are in Colorado, but I have no idea who they are in Richmond.
Now, even that is changing. A Florida court recently ruled that use of faraway local signals is illegal.
If Congress doesn't pass a law, there's a danger that more current satellite subscribers will lose channels that are available today.
Because the court ordered satellite companies to stop carrying any local broadcasts by December 31st. Most have already begun. But hoping to beat the year-end deadline, Congress will now debate a bill which would allow satellite companies to beam down local channels to local subscribers for the same fees as cable companies. It sounds simple, but it isn't.
The problem with changing the law to let the satellites carry the local signal is that if they don't do it, the market's still not served. And if they can't technologically do it, which they cannot right now, we've got to find another answer.
Diana Olick, CBS News, Capitol Hill. Congress could vote on the legislation as early as today. Satellite companies could begin providing local service as soon as the measure is signed into law. Reaction to that judge's monopoly finding against Microsoft tops this morning's business news. Market Watch analyst Betsy Krantnik is here with that and more. Good morning.
Not exactly what we expected. Good morning, everybody. So, what if Microsoft is labeled a monopoly? That doesn't seem to scare investors. Shares of the software giant ended the day with modest losses on the first trading day since a federal judge found the company is a monopoly that hurt competitors and consumers. Microsoft rivals such as Red Hat, maker of the popular Linux software, rallied as well. Now, separately, the states involved in the Microsoft antitrust case say they will pursue the company even if the federal government does not. Monsanto may be up for sale. The Wall Street Journal reports the drug and pharmaceutical giant has been holding talks about a total or partial sale with Novartis. The Journal says Monsanto is under pressure to boost its stock price. On Wall Street, the upbeat mood continued. The Dow Industrials rose 14 to 10,718. The Nasdaq seemed just unstoppable, gaining 41 to another record. In Japan, the Nikkei added 51. Once again, we are looking at Pfizer. Late yesterday, the company issued a statement about its strength and about the wisdom of a Warner Lambert acquisition. Also, Amazon.com is expected to announce today it's going to enter another new market, possibly tools or software. We're waiting to see. Sometimes a promotion can work too well. ToysRUs.com was hit by a temporary slowdown Sunday and Monday. This after a special offering of coupons and free shipping jacked traffic up 1,000%. That's a lot of traffic. Couldn't handle it. For more, click on cbs.marketwatch.com.
Were you one of them?
I was not one of them because I didn't know about the promotion.
Okay, well, now you will be. Thanks, Betsy. Straight ahead on the CBS Morning News, your Tuesday weather forecast. And in sports, a long run that ended in a very costly night for Emmitt Smith and the Dallas Cowboys.
CBS Market Watch, sponsored by Charles Schwab. When we created a smarter kind of investment firm, we also created a smarter kind of investor.
Now it's time for a look at this morning's weather. The latest satellite picture shows that the weather remains tranquil from the Rockies to the eastern seaboard as the skies are generally clear. However, there's a pretty strong storm moving in from the Pacific Ocean, and skies have already grown gray from Northern California to Washington. Later today, gusty winds will whip sheets of heavy rain across the northwest coastline, and the soaking rain should continue well into the night. Meanwhile, it'll be another day of record warmth across the plains, Midwest, and Ohio Valley as temperatures soar well into the 70s, along with plenty of bright sunshine. Elsewhere, the Northeast will also begin to warm up just a bit from yesterday's chill. Now let's go from our weather map to your hometown. New York, sunny and windy, 65. Chicago, sunny. Can you believe 73? Miami, sunny and 80. Dallas, sunny and 78. Denver, partly cloudy, 70. LA, sunny and 70. In sports, without their stars, the Dallas Cowboys crumbled at Minnesota. Emmitt Smith grabbed a face mask on a 63-yard scoring run that may have been where he broke his right hand. Smith came back to score 18 seconds later after a fumble, but then he left. He won't be back for 2 to 5 weeks. Troy Aikman left in the third quarter after suffering the 6th concussion of his career. A premature fireworks explosion didn't keep Chris Carter from moving the Vikings in front. Jeff George threw 3 touchdown passes. 2 went to Randy Moss as the Vikings, who trailed 17-0 in the first half, won 27-17. There's a big change in college football's Bowl Championship Series standings. Tennessee is number 2 this week, ahead of unbeaten Virginia Tech. The Hokies were held up by a weaker schedule, rated 60th of 114 Division 1A teams. In the NBA, Michael Jordan watched Latrell Sprewell hit a 3 to force an overtime. He had 21 points, and Marcus Camby had 23 as the Knicks beat Milwaukee 111 to 101. Other NBA winners were the Jazz, the Nuggets, the Magic, and the 76ers. In baseball, Shawn Green got his wish. The Toronto Blue Jays sent him home to Southern California in a trade to the Los Angeles Dodgers for another right fielder, Raul Mondesi. Cincinnati reliever Scott Williamson is the National League's Rookie of the Year. Williamson had 19 saves after spending 2 minor league seasons as a starter. The House of Representatives approved a bill designed to help clean up the sport of boxing. The Muhammad Ali Boxing Act would, among other things, force sanctioning bodies, promoters, and referees to disclose how much they are paid and who is paying them. A New York yacht, Young America, cracked and nearly sank during the America's Cup trials off New Zealand today. The $4 million boat cracked just behind the mast in 5-foot seas and sent the crew diving into the water. Luckily, no one was hurt. Just ahead on the CBS Morning News, another look at the day's top stories and pinpointing the risk of heart disease and stroke, how doctors can take the temperature of your arteries. On the CBS Morning News, here's a look at today's weather. It'll be another gorgeous day from Kansas to Ohio as southerly winds keep the mercury well into the 70s. Elsewhere, the Northeast will turn milder, while it'll be windy and wet in the Northwest. Now here's another look at this morning's top stories. A more sophisticated, tougher underwater robot has joined the hunt for the data and voice recorders from Egypt Air Flight 990. The forecast calls for good weather through Thursday. And in a major departure for managed care, the nation's second-largest health insurer, United Health, will now allow doctors to have the final say on patient treatment. Doctors will still have to justify their actions. On the CBS Health Watch this morning, a new look at heart disease. Researchers say they're learning more about why people have heart attacks, and they're working on new ways to help those people stay healthy. Elizabeth Caledon has details.
64-year-old Victor Haid has done everything right. He quit smoking, controls his cholesterol, and eats sensibly. But after 5 angioplasties and bypass surgery, he is still plagued by heart disease. Victor represents a big mystery to cardiologists like David Vorsheimer,
Fast heartbeats, do you feel those anymore?
who are taking a fresh look at the underlying causes of heart disease and believe the real culprit in causing heart attacks may be inflammation in the arteries. As it does in any infection, the body uses inflammation to attack disease. In the case of arteries, it forms around the blockages called plaques, often caused by high cholesterol and smoking. Doctors now believe the arteries most likely to rupture, causing heart attacks, are areas where there is the most inflammation.
The big dilemma today in cardiology is whether inflammation is the chicken or the egg. In other words, is the inflammation a separate risk factor in addition to the other ones, or is inflammation the way the other risk factors channel their damaging effects onto the artery walls?
The other dilemma is how to find inflamed arteries before they cause trouble. Cardiologists in Texas believe they've figured that out.
We had this simple idea that an inflamed area would be hot.
In the same way that infection often leads to fever, Dr. Ward Cassells and Dr. James Willerson followed a hunch and found that inflamed arteries were, in fact, 1 to 4 degrees warmer than healthy arteries.
We reason that the detection of this temperature difference will allow us to predict the arteries at risk to rupture, leading to heart attacks and strokes.
It may sound like a simple notion, but actually taking the temperature of arteries has never been done before and is not so simple. To do it, researchers here at the Texas Heart Institute have developed 2 devices, prototypes, which they hope can one day be used in people.
One is a catheter which can be wired into the artery and expanded to measure temperature. The other uses infrared technology to potentially give doctors a look at what's hot and what's not.
We really have not had any other way to detect the vulnerable plaque with certainty.
Using catheters to pinpoint risky arteries is still years away, but doctors believe inflammation holds the key to tackling what remains the nation's #1 killer. Elizabeth Caledon, CBS News, New York.
A new poll of British doctors finds that Hawkeye Pierce is the fictional MD they like the most. The character played by Alan Alda on the TV series MASH was the favorite of nearly a quarter of the more than 1,000 doctors polled. Coming up on the early show with Bryant Gumbel and Jane Clayson, the latest in telecommunications, a disposable cell phone. Elective surgery for vision correction is quickly growing in popularity, but how safe is it? And Martha Stewart has the scoop on some super stuffing. I'm Julie Chen, and this is the CBS Morning News. Finally this morning, it is 53 days and counting to the turn of the new millennium. Not long for those charged with exterminating the so-called Y2K bug. How are they doing? We have a Countdown to 2000 report from Steve Croft of 60 Minutes.
If you ask the question, where will the Y2K computer bug do serious damage, the answer is no one really knows. But everyone agrees on one thing: all is not Y2K ready in the world. Places people are worried about: oil-producing Indonesia, where phones failing or the electricity going out would mean energy shortages. Russia, where Y2K-related airport problems could back up air traffic in Europe for weeks. In Asia, where problems in manufacturing electronic parts and automotive components could ripple through the U.S. economy.
There's so many links in our global supply chains that all it takes is a few weak links to cause problems.
For several years now, Ed Yardeni, Deutsche Bank's chief economist, has been predicting that Y2K failures equal a 70% chance of a worldwide recession.
As an economist, I am not predicting doomsday. I am not predicting anything that we need to particularly panic about. What I'm predicting is a recession.
When you say it's not a doomsday scenario, I mean, in this economic climate, when somebody says recession.
Yeah. I just think it's naively optimistic to believe that all these systems are going to function just fine.
The assumption is that wealthy countries like the United States or Great Britain are ready.
But that's only an assumption. No one really knows what countries have fixed which problems. And the little information that is available is all self-reported, which means it's almost always reassuring and positive, and no one is checking its reliability.
We have found from our work that there will be failures at every economic level in every region of the world.
At the State Department, Inspector General Jacqueline Williams-Bridger says there are more than 80 countries with moderate to high risks of Y2K problems in telecommunications, power generation, and transportation.
Now, they may not be disastrous events, but there will be pockets of failures.
We have links to all the various countries.
At the World Bank-funded International Y2K Cooperation Center in Washington, Director Bruce McConnell worries about networks of computers that may fail gradually, not all at once.
My worldwide assessment is that not very much will happen on the 1st of January or the 2nd of January, that it will be somewhat of a non-event, and that after that we will start to see failures in business systems which will come about over days and weeks.
The bottom line is you don't really know how this is going to turn out, do you?
Absolutely not.
With billions already spent on the computer bug, this New Year's Eve, U.S. companies admit they'll be waiting to see what in the world will go wrong and where. Steve Croft, CBS News, on the countdown to 2000.
And that's the CBS Morning News for this Tuesday. We'll see you later for the early show. I'm Julie Chen. Have a great day.
For news 24 hours a day, CBS.com on the Internet and on our interactive partner, America Online, at keyword CBS News.
Experience you can trust. CBS News.